IELTS, IELTS. No matter how you pronounce the name of this test, it's a really important test, especially if you're wanting to do a working holiday or get a work or study visa in an English-speaking country. But are you prepared to take the test? If not, watch today's video as I give you 6 tips to pass this test. Welcome back to Dynamic English. Today, I'm going to be giving you some tips on how to pass this all-important exam. But before we get started, be sure to click that subscribe button and ring the bell for notifications so you don't miss out on future content. Alright, let's get started. First, really quick, let's talk about the scoring of this test. Normally, you're going to need to score a 6.5 in each of the modules in order to pass. A 7 is generally considered a good score. An 8 or a 9, really good. So let me explain. If you wanted to study a bachelor's degree in Australia, you're going to need to score a minimum of 6. However, for a master's degree, you're going to need to score a minimum of 6.5. For New Zealand, a bachelor's degree will require a 6 to a 6.5, depending on the program. And for a master's, the same. To go to Canada, you will need a minimum of 5.5 to a 6 for your bachelor's degree, or a 6 to a 6.5 for a master's. The United States will only require a 6 to study a bachelor's, while you'll need to score at least a 7 to study a master's. And finally, the UK has the toughest requirements, as you'll need to score a 6.5 to study the bachelor's and at least a 7 to a 7.5 to obtain a master's. This test is going to measure the 4 pillars of the language: listening, reading, writing, and speaking. Each module is scored out of 9 points. So if you have 4 9s, you've got a perfect score. But like I said, most people, most countries, will accept a 6.5. Alright, this test is designed to test your receptive and your productive skills. Receptive skills are going to be focused on listening and reading, while the productive skills are going to be focused on your writing and your speaking. So, here's my first tip. Prepare yourself physically. And no, I don't mean you have to start a gym membership. I mean, prepare yourself physically. The first thing you want to make sure to do on test day is to eat. It's not good to take a test on an empty stomach, so you'll want to make sure that you get plenty to eat and plenty of water to drink. Stay hydrated. You'll also want to make sure that you sleep the night before. Taking a test when you're tired is not good. So I know you might be nervous the night before the test, but you need to get some sleep. And lastly, you'll need to wear comfortable clothes. I'm not saying wear pajamas to take the test, but you don't have to dress formal. You want to be comfortable so that you can clearly think about what you're doing on the exam. I mentioned comfy clothes because this test is almost 3 hours long. You're going to have a 40-minute listening section, a 60-minute reading section, a 60-minute writing section, and a 10 to 15-minute speaking section. So you want to be prepared. Tip number 2, know the format of the test. The first section we're going to talk about is the listening section. This can be the most difficult for people who are used to subtitles or rewinding things to listen a second time. In this test, however, there are no pauses. There's no rewind. You get to listen to the audio one time and one time only. To start practicing before, for the listening portion of the exam, I recommend things like podcasts, watching television talk shows, documentaries, or even TED Talks. Notice that I didn't mention movies or series, and there's a reason why. The way that listening exercises are designed are more like a documentary feature and less like a sitcom. So, in order to train your ears, it's better to stick to documentaries or podcasts. The next section of the test will focus on reading. So my advice to start practicing now is to read, and read some more. Like I mentioned before, the reading portion of the exam is 1 hour. So if reading in English for more than 10 minutes is something that maybe puts you to sleep, you need to start practicing now to get used to reading long articles in English. And while I love reading books in English, in order to prepare for the reading portion of this exam, I would recommend more so reading magazines and newspapers, as the reading articles that you will be presented in this test really won't be poetry or fiction. They'll be more something like a newspaper article. While you're reading those newspapers or magazines, be sure to note any new vocabulary and the correct spelling, as that will be handy on the writing portion of the exam. That brings me to the next section, the writing section. If writing in English is something that complicates you or something that you don't do very often, my advice is to start practicing now. In this exam, you will be asked a question, and you will need to write a written response. Your response will probably need to be at least 4 to 5 paragraphs long. Short, simple responses just won't cut it. Let's take a look at an example of a question you might be asked to write about. Many people believe that social networking sites, such as Facebook, have had a huge negative impact on both individuals and society. To what extent do you agree? Now, if you were to just write something like, I think Facebook is bad and I don't like using Facebook and it makes people think that they're ugly, and that's all you write, chances are you're not going to do very well on the writing portion of this exam. Instead, in the writing portion, what you will want to do is to develop an idea. So in response to this question, maybe you can show the positives of Facebook, then a paragraph writing about the negatives of Facebook, maybe a paragraph about your opinion on Facebook, and finally a conclusion paragraph. But be careful on the writing exam because you are not allowed to have any blank paper with you. So all of your ideas will need to be developed in your head. And the last portion of the test involves the speaking interview. And this is the part that usually scares the most people. Although it's the shortest, it can be the most intimidating module of the test. Now, don't worry. The speaking portion doesn't mean that you have to stand in front of a room and give a speech. It's more like an interview style with you and a teacher, one-on-one, so no big crowds. With the speaking portion, I want to be clear. It doesn't matter if you speak with an accent. That's pretty normal. The proctor giving you the interview is not concerned with your accent, but more so your comprehension and your pronunciation. And my last tip for the speaking portion of the exam, just like with the writing, avoid short, simple answers. For example, when the proctor asks you, where are you from, instead of just saying, Santiago, you should elaborate and give a more broad answer. I am from Santiago, Chile, which is the capital of Chile. It's located in the middle of the country. Something more robust is going to be a better answer than simple one-word responses. Tip number 3, take practice exams before the actual test. In order to practice this test, there are a multitude of online resources and websites that you can take practice tests. Some of them are free, while some of them might ask you to pay a small fee. But any practice is good practice before this exam. If online tests aren't your thing, there are also plenty of apps that are specifically geared towards this test. So, if you're on the go, download an app and practice before you take the test. At Dynamic English, we offer both individual and group courses, all with native English-speaking teachers. Our classes are conversation-based, so whether you're just looking to improve your English conversation or looking to pass a test, contact us. Tip number 4, focus. While doing your practice exams, I recommend setting a timer. For example, if you can read for 1 hour without stopping or falling asleep, then you're on the right path. Tip number 5, increase your vocabulary. So in all of your practice, you should be noting any new vocabulary words that you find. Let's take a look at some numbers. If you were to learn 3 new vocabulary words every day, at the end of 1 month, you're going to have learned 90 new vocabulary words. If you increase that to 5 vocabulary words every day, by the end of 1 month, you're going to have learned 150 new words. All of these words will be very helpful in the speaking and writing portion of your exam. Okay, that's all the time I have for today. If you found this video to be useful, be sure to leave us a like and leave us a comment with any other tips that you might have. And if you've made it this far, why not stick around and watch a few of our other videos to keep improving your English? From all of us here at Dynamic English, thank you so much for watching. See you next time. IELTS International. No, wait. IELTS. How do you pronounce this?